Hey, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Made in Sims podcast. It's been a minute since we've done a Made in Sims, and we were just looking for some good folks to continue our interview series with. And today we have maybe what might be one of my favorite interviews we've ever done. First off, obviously, I'm not Kenneth Havens. Kenneth had a meeting he had to be in today, so he was not able to be in. But you guys know me. I'm Shane. I'm our producer here at Made in Sims and the Suitcase podcast. So today we had the opportunity to talk with Troy Latham of Latham Bee Farm. Troy is just a fantastic guy. He and I go way back. We spent a lot of time together at our church. We went to the same church back in the early 2000s. And man, it was a lot of fun just catching up with Troy. He tells a lot of really fun stories about his first beekeeping outfit, how he got into bees, and where that's taken him in his life. We talk about his family. We talk about his favorite stuff and just some lessons he's learned along the way. So you guys watch this episode, check it out. Hope you guys enjoy it as much as we enjoyed filming it. So we've known each other for a while. You and I have met, I guess it was back 2004 when I came to Fountain of Life.
Yeah, it was way back then.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, for real, that it was next year will be 20 years since my family and I came to Mobile for the first time. 20 years. It does not feel like it's been that long.
Time flies. It flies.
Joking. You are not joking. Me and you were much younger looking and better looking back then.
I don't know about the better looking part, but definitely younger.
That's funny. So I'm here with Troy Latham, and Troy is the owner of Latham Bee Farm. I got that right, right?
You got that right, yes.
Perfect. Yeah, like we were saying, he and I go back long ways at church world and stuff like that. And our listeners know that I moved away a long time ago, and then coming back now, worlds are different, so we haven't really connected back a whole lot. No. So it's really cool to have this moment to connect back again and see what you're up to and catch up right here in front of a bunch of people who are going to be watching us catch up. So
awesome, a good deal.
So Latham Bee Farm. Tell me how you got started with bees. Like what is Latham Bee Farm? What is that?
Well, so we have a number of colonies that are spread around Sims, and we try to stay local. And
sure.
So Cindy's my wife. We started this kind of as an accident. Because I'm an educator by profession.
Would you get stung? Did you find a hive in your school somewhere?
So I was tasked at my job. I work at the Environmental Studies Center. That's my full-time job. Yeah. And we were looking for things to be interactive for students to just, come up and look at and be amazed at.
Right.
And so a friend of mine had been a beekeeper, and I thought, well, I wonder if, how this would work. So we started reaching out and talking to different people and this and that, and we put a single observation hive on the front porch. It had, you could look in the window and you could see one frame of bees crawling around. And
so it's kind of like an ant farm, but for bees.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly what it was.
All right.
And so we were fooling around with that. And so it became my job, since it was my idea, to take care of these bees. And I was like, man, this is really cool. And it became fascinating to watch how these bees interact with each other and nature. And so I came home one day and I told Cindy, I said, I think I'm going to get me a beehive. And she said, really? And I said, yeah. And so, the initial expense for beekeeping, like any hobby, is up there a little bit.
Right, of course.
And so we did that. And I got a hive and I put bees in it. And man, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not one of these people that, research it for a year, talk and this and that.
You just jump in, figure it out as you go.
Just figure it out as I go. And so made a lot of mistakes along the way. But
all right, pause. Did you at least have a beekeeper suit?
Let me hold on. So
we are in Sims, Alabama. You never know. You might have been out there in a flannel shirt and some jeans. I'm just saying.
So at work, I didn't have a beekeeper suit, and I like I said, just jumped in this.
Right.
And my first beekeeping suit, I took because it was an emergency situation. I mean, be embarrassed to even say this.
An emergency bee situation.
It was an emergency bee situation. And I had to take window screen wiring and put it all around my head. And I had a coworker duct tape it.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. That was my first beekeeping suit.
Please tell me there's a picture of this somewhere. Man.
There is no picture. So, I've got this contorted, bent wire all around my head trying to take care of these bees.
Oh, man, that's great.
But yes, I do have a beekeeping suit now. I don't wear it very often, but I have one.
But you got one.
I do have one.
All right.
So that one hive has expanded to, and depending on what's going on with the bees and the weather and all of that, could be upwards of 50, could be anywhere from 30 or 40. So that's where I'm at right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So it started from one little bee farm observation hive to over 50.
Wow. So okay, so I don't know a whole lot about beekeeping, obviously. But so how tall are they?
So generally they're about 8 inches. They're sitting on a stand about 8 inches off the ground.
Okay.
And then from there, the boxes, they could be about 2 feet tall this time of year. Or when I'm putting honey supers on and it's the early spring, it can get 4 or 5 feet tall.
Wow.
For me. So, it varies among beekeepers, but
sure.
But yeah, that's the general height of them. But this time of year, there's no honey. We're not in a nectar flow, and so everything is shrunk down to as small as possible in a single or double box.
This sounds like a for real. There's a lot of science to this. You're talking about nectar flows and honey supers, and I don't even know. Look, man, I just know it's a bug that makes honey. That's all I know.
Well, they do much more than that. Let me tell you, there's much more.
Right.
And you're right. It is a lot like science. The first time I went to a beekeeping conference, it was a 3-day conference. And I signed up for 1 day because I said, "There's no way I can sit and listen."
They can't tell me. They can't tell me
3 days.
3 days.
I'm still going to conferences and I'm still learning everything. Everything is
great.
I always tell everybody, if you want to learn about the natural world of what's going on around you, you get into beekeeping because you learn biology, you learn genetics, you learn plants and flowers and times of blooming. I mean, everything is tied to pollinators in general, not just the honeybees, but pollinators in general.
So how does Cindy feel about your bee hobby or bee business, I guess now?
She loves it.
Yeah.
She always complains, we don't have enough honey. We need to get more bees. And I'm thinking, I'm one person. You want to jump in a bee suit and start learning?
You need a second person.
I need some help,
So if you'd like a job with Latham, I'm just playing.
I can't hire you.
If you'd like a volunteer unpaid internship with no school credit,
no benefits,
come see Troy.
Exactly.
If you like to get stung, come see Troy.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so how many times have you been stung? It has to be like a million, right?
Oh, you can't keep track of it. Yeah.
I believe it.
So that's one of the downsides, I guess, is the stings. But you get used to it, and they're not like getting stung by red wasp or yellow jacket. It hurts for a little bit.
It's just annoying.
It is annoying. Now you start getting stung quite a few times.
Yeah.
You got to do something.
Yeah.
But down here in the heat in July and August, it's hard to wear a suit. So most of the time I'm just in a veil just to protect my face.
Yeah.
And then I'm in short sleeves, like this, and just
man.
just deal with it.
You're an animal.
That's what most of us have to do that in this heat. We can't take this heat in those suits. That's rough.
So what you're saying is what we see in the movies with full-fledged with the hazmat suits.
Astronaut looking suit.
Too hot.
It's too hot. You can't do it. Now some people can do it. If you've got 1 or 2 hives, go through.
But when you're hitting 30 to 50,
it's a whole different ballgame.
I can imagine, and if you're in, Pennsylvania, then sure, because it's like 70 degrees.
Right.
When you're in the South Alabama heat and it's 105 with a heat index of 110, 111, 115. Nah, man.
You can't do it.
I'm just going to get stung.
Yeah.
It's bad when getting stung by bees is the better option than being in a suit.
Than dying from a heat stroke. That's
the truth.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
That's funny. All right, so this is the question I have. When you were growing up, did you ever think you'd be a bee farmer?
Oh, no. That never even was in my radar.
Yeah.
That was, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a game warden.
Really?
That's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to be. I always loved the outdoors.
Yeah, of course.
Fishing, hunting.
Sure.
That's what I've always enjoyed. And this was just, like you said earlier, just fell in my lap.
Yeah.
And it's just grown from there.
So you guys still do it at the school?
Oh, yeah. We've got, we went from that one little observation hive to I do 8 there now. Well, that's kind of our maximum that we want.
Right.
And so that's evolved into its own little thing. We do a pollinator program now. We've built a viewing screen around it, and so I can go in there and open the hives up with the students watching.
Sure.
And so that's and now we sell honey there through the environmental center.
Yeah.
So
So let's talk about the selling of the honey. Mm-hmm. So what was the process that took you from this is a cool little hobby to, hey, we could probably make a little bit of money off of this?
Well, like I said, we went from one hive, and then one hive becomes 2, and 2 becomes 4, and
sure.
and then all of a sudden you think, well, hey, we got all this honey. What are we going to do with it? And so once people realize that you have honey, you don't have a hard time selling it,
right?
And so it's in high demand. So we figured out, well, let's try to recoup some of our money that we spent in materials, and so. That just led from one thing to another, and so we never early on we never put it in stores, and we still only have very few stores that it's in, just because we can make more money selling it, from our house than selling it wholesale. There's a lot of work into it, and so we've slowly evolved from having honey for ourselves to having enough honey to extend out to sell to now we're starting to put it in some stores here and there.
Awesome.
And so, we do a lot of farmers markets and events like that, especially here in Sims. And so, we try to keep our name out there. But when you have bees, their natural tendency is to swarm, which is to multiply.
Sure.
And if you're a beekeeper, you try to prevent that, but it's almost impossible to stop. And so that's where those 2 hives become 4 hives, and you get, at some point you've just got to say, okay, I've got too much, or hire help or volunteers, like you were saying. And and so it just keeps getting bigger, and it's hard to find an end point to it. And so we, as long as we can maintain it and do it, we're going to do it, and we're going to sell honey.
So what's your favorite thing to do with your honey personally, like food or whatever?
A lot of times I just put it in my coffee.
Really?
Now I eat most of my honey when I'm extracting it, because then those caps are coming off, the honey is warm, I can chew on that wax. I mean, I don't know, I might put 4 or 5 pounds on during extraction time, just eating honey and honeycomb. But I do cook with it some, with glazes and things like that. But mostly for me, I just put it in my coffee, and then I'm done with it. So I try to save it.
Man, for me, I think I'm the oddball, because I love honey, but I don't like honey in drinks.
In stuff?
Like, I don't like it in my coffee. I don't like it in tea. I don't want it in something that I'm going to drink. But, man, I'll put it on I think my favorite way to have honey is a peanut butter and banana sandwich, and just drizzle honey on the top of it, or like inside. Oh, my gosh.
I do rice
right now.
Rice cakes, peanut butter and honey drizzled on it.
That's real good.
That's my little snack. But what about honeycomb? Do you do honeycomb? Do you eat just the honeycomb?
I haven't had the opportunity very often. Well, let me rephrase. It's not that I haven't had the opportunity. I mean, I could buy honeycomb in the store today if I wanted to. It's just not something I ever think about until I think about it, and then I'm like, oh, I bet that would be good, and I just never have.
Well, see, I brought you a jar of honey, but I didn't think about the honeycomb. That's my favorite thing to do when I'm beekeeping, is to do the honeycomb, because I mean it's just perfect. It's honey encapsulated in its own container. I mean, you can just chew it. People ask me all the time, what do you do with this honeycomb? And I try to take them back to my childhood. Remember when we had the little wax bottles that had the juice in
with
them?
a little juice inside of them,
and you could chew on them.
You chew on forever.
I said it's the same thing, except it's honey,
and it's natural,
and it's all natural. I said the whole thing is 100% edible, and they're like, what? So I
guess that makes sense, because it's just beeswax and honey.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all it is. Yeah, and as long as you don't eat it in excess, because we don't digest wax very well, then you're fine. And there are some health benefits. There's not a whole lot as far as the wax is concerned, but
a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love chewing on that. So stick it in your cheek, like you're chewing on gum.
A little bit.
Can't beat it.
No doubt. So what in the Sims area, what kind of flowers do your bees pollinate mostly?
So we classify our honey as wildflower honey.
I got you. Yeah.
So it's really hard to pinpoint unless I send it off to a lab and get the pollen content in it.
Right.
But I will tell you that in June, our dominant flower is the popcorn tree, what everybody calls Chinese tallow or the popcorn tree. Mm-hmm. It's a highly invasive plant.
Right.
It's on the Alabama state noxious
weed
list.
I didn't know that.
But the bees love it, and it makes amazing honey.
Really?
It's really light. And so that's when we get most of our honey comes in at one time. From, say, March, April, and May, it's a mixture of maples and different oaks and just a whole tupelos and the poplars, just all of the trees that we have around here. It's just a mixture of all of those together. So
what is this season right now? End of July going into August?
We're in no season right now. We're in what's called the dearth. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing blooming of significance, and the bees are struggling to survive.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. The population built up real strong in the spring. And so now we've pulled all of the honey off of them. Yeah. And what honey they have would be in the box where the queen is, the brood chamber, as we call it. Sure. And so if we don't feed them now, then by September, a lot of them could starve to death.
Really?
With those big populations of bees. And so we're feeding them. We're trying to make sure they stay healthy at least up until September, and that's when the goldenrod starts to bloom. And so that's what we call the next big nectar flow, even though it's not real big, but it's something that it's
enough to live on.
Yeah, for a little while.
So anyway. So before we started rolling the cameras and everything, you told me the same thing that you have to feed the bees.
Right.
Which, y'all, I think that's just so funny that you have to feed bees.
And it's hard. You got to take each one with a little syringe and you put a little drop of sugar water and make sure that. No, I'm kidding. We don't do it. We don't do it like that. That would be. That's
Come here, buddy. Little tiny bottle.
That's only when we feed them medicine. We have to do it one by one.
Oh, that's funny. So sugar water.
Sugar water.
Okay, so you got to give me just 30 seconds. How do you feed a bee sugar water? Obviously, you don't do it one at a time.
No,
joke, obviously.
Joke, yes.
So there's got to be some kind of a system inside the hive.
There is. This time of year, we mix up sugar water. It's 1-to-1. It's 1 cup of sugar.
It's literally sugar water.
It's literally. We just take sugar and we take water and we mix equal amounts this time of year and get it, into a syrup, if you will. And a lot of us, we use buckets that's got a screen, and so you just turn that bucket upside down on top, and the bees can come up and they can pull that nectar or that sugar water out of that bucket. Some have feeders that go literally inside the hive, and you just fill it up. And so they just crawl in there and they get it as they need it.
So it's super easy.
Oh, yeah.
Super easy.
Yeah. It's just time consuming is the problem behind it. It's just, but the two biggest threats that we have as beekeepers to honeybees is starvation and mites. So we have to take care of both of those in order to get them into the spring. Yeah.
So the mites will get on the bees?
The mites get on the bees and they cause diseases. I think there's 36 different viruses that we know of that they can transmit to the bees. The most obvious one that you can see is called deformed wing virus. And so for obvious reasons, the wings are deformed. So it shortens their life cycle and they're not able to get out and forage and do what bees are supposed to do. And so if you see that, then you have a heavy mite
problem
load. Yeah, and you got to take care of it.
All right, so I got a couple of questions about beehives. Okay. So I know nothing about beehives other than they're usually white and square and stand in the middle of a field somewhere.
Right.
But okay, so I've always heard there's only one queen in a beehive. Is that true?
Generally, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So if you have a second queen, like our queens, can they be hatched inside the hive? Do you usually have to buy another queen? Like, how does that work?
So that's a good question. Generally, there's one queen in the hive. Imagine if you had two wives in the house telling you what
God help us all.
It just doesn't work. It's trouble, right?
That's right.
So there's one person in charge. That's the queen. Now, I mentioned that their general tendency is to swarm, and that's the way they reproduce. And so what happens in that situation is the old queen and half of the worker population will leave the whole hive, but they left behind another queen in production.
Gotcha.
So they're making a queen, and so when she hatches out, now she's the new queen.
Right.
She'll go out and she'll get mated, and she comes back and she's established herself inside that hive.
Gotcha.
Every now and then, queens will overlap. Sometimes they'll fight, and the survivor is the one that stays behind. Sometimes they leave, and take a small group of bees with them.
So interesting.
Yeah, so it's really neat. But the whole process, and there's we could talk a whole topic on raising queens and queen rearing and the way that works. But generally, in a nutshell, that's the way it happens.
That's crazy.
So yeah,
that's awesome. I was so I told you before we started rolling that I've got a beekeeping story that I thought was really funny.
I told you my crazy one.
So I the only reason I know this story is because my wife and I went to Savannah, and I'm sure you're familiar with Savannah Bee Company, right? So have you ever heard any stories about how they got started or anything?
I have not.
So and if anybody from Savannah Bee Company watches this, just know that I'm probably going to butcher your story. The guy that started Savannah Bee Company, it was illegal to raise bees inside the city limits of Savannah, but he always wanted to raise bees. And so if I'm not mistaken, he went to some kind of conference or class or something like that with a buddy of his that was doing it. And so he had an apartment in like downtown Savannah, and he wanted to raise bees really bad. So he put a hive in his bathroom. He said that he kept a hive in his bathroom. He couldn't use the bathroom in that bathroom. There was 2 bathrooms in the house, but he couldn't go in there. And so he would open the door to his second floor apartment to let the bees in and out of the hive and do other things.
That's wanting bees bad.
He said that's how they started. Savannah Bee. What would eventually become Savannah Bee Company was in the second floor bathroom of this guy's apartment. But man, it was a funny story. But I think the really cool thing was that we did a little food tour up there, and the Savannah Bee Company was the last stop on the tour, and that was like the dessert thing. And so they would do honey with different kinds of, like they did like an apple with some honey and a little piece of cheese on it or something like that. It was really good. But that's the first time that I've heard, I didn't know this, but honey, and you would know this obviously, but honey tastes different depending on what flower is pollinated that the bees are going to. And like they had like acacia honey and tupelo honey and just orange blossom honey and just all this different stuff. And they said, and I don't remember what kind it was, but they said that there is one kind of honey that they actually have to put the hives on a float.
Tupelo.
That's it.
Yeah.
It was really cool. I was like, that's awesome. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. I've tried Tupelo honey, and, it's good, but, I think it's more of the novelty issue of having to float them down the river and all that kind of stuff. But, it's pretty neat, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. It's so intricate, the things that you learn from beekeeping and just little hobbies like that just kind of expand your knowledge base in life, But all right, so if you could, if somebody said, Troy, I'm looking to get into beekeeping, what is the advice you would give them on the front end?
Don't do what I did. Don't just do it. Yeah. It's like I said, it's expensive up front, and the worst thing in the world is to buy all of this equipment and then put your bees in. You don't know what you're doing, and they die. Sure. Right. That's demoralizing. Right. I teach classes in September. And so I would suggest that, if you're interested, come to the classes. If not my class, somebody's class. Find a class, There's several reputable online classes that you can do. But definitely learn as much as you can ahead of time. Talk to people. Find a mentor if you can. I try to help as many people as I can outside of what I do as well. And sometimes it's hard if somebody has a question. You really need to be there and look at it, rather than just trying to answer it over the phone. So it's always good to try to find, especially somebody that's retired and is willing to just come out and check and help. But a mentor and classes is really good. Yeah. Be wary of the YouTube videos that you watch, because there's a lot of 1 year and 2 year beekeepers on there that like to give advice, and that's not always the best advice. So just make sure if you're watching videos that it's somebody that knows what they're talking about and knows what they're doing. So classes, videos, mentor, those are the 3 main things that you need to do.
That's awesome. So if you're looking back, and you've been doing it, you said since 2011 or so, something like that. That's when you kind of got started.
Yep.
So it's been 12 years now. So in 12 years, tell me the lessons that you've learned, whether it's life lessons or business lessons or whatever that you'd like to share.
Well, one of the life lessons that I can tell you is make sure you zip your veil all the way. and don't let that little hole be exposed right there. Because when they get in your face mask, there's a lot more flying around on the outside, and you can't necessarily take your hood off. So make sure you close that little hole that's right there. Otherwise, it can be, you feel like you're beating yourself in the head trying to get all those bees out. So that's a real important life lesson about that. But I guess business-wise, I'm still figuring that part of it out.
Sure.
I do know that, we sell our honey, and we're average price.
Right.
But, there's always those customers that come up and say that's too expensive. And for the people that's listening, I'd like to say this, that, it takes us all year long to get this honey in this jar.
Sure.
It's a process.
Absolutely.
It takes a lot of money. The amount of money that we have to spend on sugar water to feed them during this time of year. Of course, we don't ever feed them when they're bringing honey in because we want 100% honey. The amount of money that we have to spend on medicine, the labor that's involved in maintaining these bees and keeping them alive.
Sure.
And so, we can't give it away. This is what we consider a premium product.
Yeah, for sure.
People will go out and spend their money on their shoes, their all of this stuff. But when it comes to something like this, like, I'm not going to spend $10 on this jar of honey. Well, if you knew what it took, the bee stings, the sweat, the money that it takes to get honey inside.
$10 is a deal.
It just, exactly. It just don't happen.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So that's one thing that I try to educate people on is, it takes a lot of time to get honey inside this bottle. And so there are those commercial beekeepers that have thousands of hives, and they can afford to, lower the cost. If you're a person like me, a single guy with my wife working in the background, making the labels and trying to market this somewhat, I've got to get every dollar I can out of that honey.
Well, and I think that makes sense. And I think that's, man, the internet age has been so good in some ways, and it's caused a lot of problems in some ways. I think we can all understand that. But I think one of the things that I've noticed is that it seems like it's made everybody what they feel like to be an expert on a lot of things, and when they really don't understand everything, And I mean, personally, I know you're probably the same way. I prefer to buy local when I can. I want to support local businesses. I want to support, entrepreneurs that are around me and people that I'm in contact with on a regular basis to support their businesses. And excuse me. And I can go buy a teddy bear bottle at Publix for $3 if I want to, but I know that if I get something from Latham Bee Farm or someone like you guys, that it's going to be a better product. It's going to be right here locally, and there's a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and stings that went into it. And I'm also supporting on a level. And I think when you start realizing, like you said, educating the customers on what actually happens. Like, this is not just you don't have 20 gallons of this sitting at home that you're just pouring in jars every day to take to the flea market. It's a process,
right? It is,
And so, man, that's great. I'm looking forward to tasting some of this for sure. I'm excited about that.
And I'll tell you another benefit when you buy at least our honey is I put myself out there. I teach classes.
Sure.
I'm at farmers markets. You can put a face to a name.
Yeah.
And you go into the supermarkets and even some of these other stores that sell, local honey.
Yeah.
You don't ever see that person.
Yeah.
You can't talk to them.
Right.
You can talk to me if something's wrong with it. I'm held liable for that. You can come to me. You can come to my house. We sell out of our house.
Really?
So, you know where to find me,
right?
One way or the other.
That's right.
And so, that's
so you got to do everything right, man.
I've got to.
You got to make sure it's the best you can give.
I can't put it out there if it's not if somebody's not going to like it.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So, let's where can people find you? Have you got your number on the bottle here? We'll put a lot of information on the screen, but what's the best way for people to get your honey?
So, best thing to do, we're on Facebook, Latham Bee Farm.
Okay.
And so since Cindy and I both work, sometimes pickup is limited, but we try to make it as easy as possible.
Right.
So we sell out of our house, and you can contact us on Facebook. If you're interested, most people know where we live. We're right here in the middle of Sims.
Yeah.
So you don't have to drive very far. And our phone numbers are on there. I meant to bring you a business card, and I forgot to bring you a business card. But yeah, we're right here.
We'll throw it on the screen.
Yeah, we're right here in Sims, right across the street from Dollar General down Pomona Parkway, is where we're located.
So you said you're putting some of your product in some stores now. Are there any stores right around here that you know of that you can talk about?
Yeah, the Leaf and Bloom Garden Center that's right across from the old Barber's Dairy.
Yep.
So they've got our honey. David's Catfish House over in Spanish Fort.
Yep.
They've got our honey. Mocha's in Saraland.
Yeah,
they're selling our honey now.
Awesome.
And so it's in small quantities.
Right,
you know, I can't go out and sell them, 100 gallons and let them put it. But so we fill them as needed. And
that's great.
We got one more business, the Urgent Care. That's on. They're fairly new. They're beside the Publix on Cottage Hill and Hillcrest.
Okay.
And so starting Monday, they're going to start carrying some of our products as well.
That's great.
So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So we like to keep our name out there. We're trying our best to satisfy everybody.
Yeah.
And we sell a little bit wholesale, mostly retail, right out of our house.
Right.
Farmers markets and things like that. Of course, we're always going to be at the festival at MGM in the fall festival in October. So, we try to get around as much as possible.
Right. All right. So we talked a lot about bees. We're at about 30 minutes on our podcast now. So we'll end it with some fun stuff. Okay. So I'm going to ask you some quick questions.
Okay. And I wasn't prepared for this.
I know this is on purpose. And some of it may have to do with bees. Some of it may not. Okay. So we're just going to get to know Troy a little bit. All right. Okay. I was going to say married or not married, but obviously we've already talked about Cindy. How long have you guys been married?
We celebrated our 30th anniversary Monday.
Nice. So, if I would have asked you 6 months from now, would you have been able to tell me?
I probably would have struggled. I'm not lying. I'd been looking for Cindy like, how long has it been?
It's been how long now? 30 years, man. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So we, Keith and I, will have our 23rd on August 19th. So I'm telling you, man, look, finding people that have marriages that are, 20 years or more right now, it's a rare thing. I'm finding out. So congratulations to you on that. Okay. So number of kids.
So we've got 3.
Okay.
We've got Brittany, and she's kind of done her own thing. She's kind of going into the honey. She buys honey from us, and she's marketing all kinds of herbal medicines and things like that. And so she's doing that. Our second oldest is Joshua, and he's currently works for UPS. He's married, got a child, and then our youngest is Cody, recently married. Wow. He got married in May, and so he and his wife they're both productive citizens working out at Chevron. So
that's great,
they
man.
do a lot. Yeah,
that's great. So, 3 adult children, and we've got 4 grandchildren.
Man,
so how old are you?
Man, I feel like I'm old, but I'm only 53. So we started out early.
You're a youngin', man. Yeah, that's what. So we were talking before we started. I've got my oldest son is going to be married next year, and then my middle son, they're talking about marriage, him and his girlfriend, and so I just turned 43, so I'm 10 years behind you. And Keith and I were talking. We were like, we could be grandparents in just the next couple of years.
I know.
This is crazy.
That's hard to hear, Pawpaw at 45, right?
Man, I don't know about all that. Woo. Okay. All right. So, favorite football team?
Alabama. Yeah, I saw your Florida Gators shirt, and I was like, man, I don't know about all this.
I don't know if it's going to look 25. That's the year we're looking to realistically as Florida fans.
I 25. But listen, I like Alabama. I follow Alabama. Yeah. If a fishing trip comes up on a Saturday, I'm fishing. I'm not worried about it. You'll figure out about the score later. I'm not that hardcore.
Okay, all right. Biggest fish you ever caught?
Oh, man, I caught about a 73-pound blue cat up in the Alabama River. Yeah, so
what part of the Alabama?
Right below the Claiborne Lock and Dam.
Really?
Yeah. I was working for fisheries, Alabama fisheries back then, and we were looking for the Alabama sturgeon, and the way we fished was trot lines, and so we pulled that big boy up.
What?
So yeah, he was impressive.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Do you ever do any saltwater?
Not as much as I'd like, but we went out just this 2-3 weekends ago, and water was rough. Tied into a few amberjack.
Nice.
And Cindy got sick, so we had to come back in.
Fair.
So
yeah, we caught. We went to Cabo San Lucas 2 years ago. for like a missions summit with the church, me and Kisa and our pastor and his wife. And one of the days we did marlin fishing down in Cabo, and we caught either 6 or 7 marlin on a 5-hour trip.
Wow.
And let me tell you something. So the one that I caught he was like a little over 200 pounds. And I've always thought how fun it would be to pull in like a fish that's multiple hundreds of pounds.
Oh yeah.
And you hang into it, and then you sit in the chair and you put the rod in the little thing, and the chair swivels around and all that stuff, and he's jumping in the water. So for about 15 minutes, it's the most fun you've ever had.
Yeah, and
then you realize how much work this actually is. So it was about an hour and 15 minutes reeling that fish, and it was so much fun the first, like I said, 15, 20 minutes. And then I'm going, oh my God, I need to work out more. This is the worst. This fish pulls so hard.
We were the same way catching those amberjack. You catch one amberjack and like, man, that's so much fun. And you're like, please don't catch it. Please don't bite it. Please don't do it. It's amazing how hard a fish this big
can fight. I know. Well, we went out with me and my middle son went out snapper fishing last Friday, and so I've snapper fished a bunch of times, and probably the biggest snapper I've caught is, I don't know, 12, 15 pounds, something like that. The first 2 snapper my son has ever caught were 21 and 22 pounds.
Oh man.
Huge snapper.
Those are big.
Huge snapper.
Yes, they are.
I was like, what?
Yeah. And so then you start putting that meat in the freezer. Were y'all fishing? Man. Were you fishing public numbers or private numbers?
Public.
Okay. I was going to say, I need those private numbers.
I know, man. I know, man. But anyway, okay. So, favorite city or country? This is obvious. Do you prefer city or country?
Oh, country.
Country, of course. Yeah, no obviously. We're in Sims.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite meal. What's your favorite thing to eat?
Man, I love some crab claws. Crab legs and crab claws. You can't go wrong.
So
I had
good.
a Krabby Patty yesterday.
Yeah.
So, but
where did you get that, SpongeBob?
I was fishing yesterday, and we pulled right up to the bluegill dock and went on inside.
Oh man, bluegill's great.
Oh yeah, I got me a Krabby Patty sandwich.
Nice,
so
nice.
Yeah, it was good. But
That's
man,
awesome.
I love some crab claws. I wish either the casinos were closer or the price was lower.
Come on,
because man, the drive over there and then to have to pay $40. I mean, wherever it is now, I don't even remember.
That's right.
So I just go to the lighthouse and get the crab claws that look like chicken wings down there. If you hadn't been down there,
I haven't.
Those, man.
I need to.
Good gracious,
I love some crab claws.
Oh, I love
them. So my favorite seafood at all, period, is crab legs. Yeah. I love crab legs. Man, they are so stinking expensive. Oh my gosh, they're so expensive. All right, are you a hunter?
Yes. I don't hunt as much as I like to, but
do you whitetail or?
Yeah,
okay.
Deer hunting. Yeah, and Cody, my youngest, he kind of got me into duck hunting. I swore I was never going to duck hunt. But I tried it. The wood ducks. I don't mind the wood ducks. All of this stuff going out into the bay and setting out spreads of, I don't care anything about that. But I love duck hunting. I love dove hunting.
Nice.
And deer hunting.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Well, look, I really enjoyed hanging out with you today. Just hearing about what you're doing and all that stuff.
We can keep talking for hours.
I know, man. This has been easy. Look, there's some, and I'm not going to say who you are, but sometimes it's a struggle to get 15 or 20 minutes. Look, do you realize we've been talking for 40 minutes? 40 minutes we've been talking right now.
Yeah, it goes by.
It feels natural though.
Yeah,
it does. Good. It's a good conversation.
I've enjoyed it.
All right. Well, look, we'll keep all the information on the screen as we talk, and so you guys have been seeing that, and you guys check out Latham Bee Farm. Troy's got a lot going on with this stuff. Just look for the little yellow diamond-shaped Latham and go pick up a bunch of their honey and make them run out where he's got to work a lot harder to get more.
There you go.
And that'll be a good thing. I'm sure he wouldn't be too mad if he sold out of honey. So, look, man, I'm glad you're able to be a part of the podcast today. And man, hoping the business just continues to grow and just go crazy. So, and blessing the city of Sims with your awesome honey. So,
yeah, well, I appreciate you and Kenneth having me out here and inviting me to do this.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
He really wanted to be here. He had a meeting with the city today and wasn't able to hop on. And so he's he'll be back next time, though. So
yeah, I'll call Sandy and put in a good word for him.
Yeah, and I'm sure he would appreciate that. I'm sure he would appreciate it. So, all right, man. Well, look, you guys, thanks for joining us today today on the Made in Sims podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with everybody around you. Remember, you can always find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you find your podcast. But until next time, we'll catch you guys later. Have a great day.